Good morning and welcome to what I believe will be a very interesting conversation with my new friend Jimmy from Tonernews. Jimmy, you are in Hollywood, but not the Hollywood in California, but the Hollywood in Florida. So how are you this morning, and welcome?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yes, I'm in Hollywood, Florida, and I used to live in Hollywood, Los Angeles. So
Which one of
I just can't get away from the Hollywood thing.
Which one is the better?
Well, I've been here 25 years, so right now it's better.
Okay, fantastic.
Plus, we're close to the beach, so that's always nice.
It's always nice. When I'm back in Denmark, I'm also close to the beach, but that is almost always cold water, so I don't use it as much as you probably use your beach. But that's another story, of course, right? So, Jimmy, we got to know each other because I started writing a little bit about the weaker Muslim situation in China, and we have a common friend, Ray Stashowski from the End of Day with Ray, and you sent me some information and some links to your website, Tonernews. And I must admit that I didn't know it until then, even though I think it's a well-recognized site. But because I am not so much in the toner and not so much in the office segment. So maybe you can give us a little introduction to who you are and what Tonernews is.
So yes, my name is Herve Milner. No one could pronounce Herve, so I just call myself Jimmy, which has been the ongoing name for many years now. The site has been around, actually it was around in the late 90s under a different name, and it turned into Tonernews in 2002. We've since then started with the idea and the concept of supporting recycling and remanufacturing. And we have been doing so ever since over the years. We talk about a lot of issues that people don't want to address, a lot of news that is, maybe sometimes a little over the top, but we believe it's well needed to bring a full view of the industry for people who are interested.
That was a good introduction, and I like that. One question: if you look at, because for people, I think it can be a little bit difficult to understand the scope of this industry. If you look at the toners for laser printers in office segment, how many? It's in billions, I guess, right? How big is the industry?
The OEM industry is fairly big. The remanufacturing industry is not big at all. It's quite diminished, especially over the last 5 years. But the Chinese industry is big, and it's a booming industry.
So when you say the industry is not big, are you talking about the U.S. industry, or are you talking about the global industry?
The global industry.
Okay.
Also, one thing to consider is people are just not printing as much as they used to.
Of course. So that, of course,
for obvious reasons. Yeah. So it was very big, I would say, up until, up on about 2015. It was really a booming industry. And since then, it's gradually, unfortunately come down, but we must keep print alive.
Definitely. And also just to let's say, put Tonernews in perspective, as you say, that sometimes you have brought to the attention of the market information that is maybe a little bit over the top of what is like the most common things on your website. But have Tonernews become like an authority in the part of the industry that you work in your mind?
Yes. So I believe we have become an authority. We've been at this, like I said, as Tonernews for over 21 years now. We have over 43,000 postings on Tonernews. We have a database that goes back to 2005, or maybe 2002, and there is ample news about everybody in the print industry that has to do with toner and ink. From HP to Xerox to Canon to the Chinese to the remanufacturers in the U.S. like Clover and Planet Green. So there's a lot of information there. And we did start off being a little far-fetched, because we were reading our competitors' news, and it was just totally boring stuff, like awards and celebration and people patting themselves on the back and not really dealing with the the beef of the issues, just like, hey, he got an award, and it's just we found our competitors' news quite boring. So we took it a step further, and we at times we do embellish it to make people click on it and make people read it, but it's at this point in the game, after all these years, our news is relevant and it's read by everybody in the industry.
So it is an industrial kind of news site. It is for like OEMs and dealers and people that works professionally with the toner and office equipment, right?
Correct. It is.
As I mentioned in the introduction, you and I got connected because of this the UFLPA ban. That was put in effect or in motion, I think it was in the beginning of June or something like that. At least that was when I heard about it the first time. And I was just wondering, because, talking about manufacturing and remanufacturing of cartridges, and talking about toner, and talking about, let's say, the industry in more like broader perspective, why is it important for a media like yours to at all be interested in a ban like this one?
It's important because we've been documenting the industry, like I said, since 2002, and we've been documenting the Chinese in our industry for over a decade. They basically, if this is our point of view, they basically all started off as counterfeiters. They were big into counterfeiting, and we believe they still have plants on the side where they manufacture IP protected and non-IP protected product, and they also have facilities where they do straight up counterfeiting. Well, they'll ship it to a country like Sudan, and nobody knows. There's no IP enforcement. So the ban by the Department of Homeland Security is extremely important for the industry, because we've been documenting this industry, which basically operates, in our opinion, above the law.
And that is of course important, because and that is of course also very important to understand when we're going to talk in details about the ban in a moment. But just get it for me to understand 100% is basically that if you are addressing Chinese manufacturers that are not within the law, basically that creates first something that is illegal, but secondly it's also unfair competition to people that actually comply to law, right? So that is one of the reasons why Tonernews obviously have an interest in covering something that can have a huge impact on your audience, right?
That is correct. And one of the main problems we found early on with the Chinese way of doing business is basically overproduction. So the remanufacturing industry, and the concept of it was basically the OEMs come out with a product, and it's then the toners recycled and remanufactured. And that was working good, I would say till about 2015. But then we noticed that the Chinese were overproducing. In fact, in some cases, we even documented that they produced more toners than the OEMs of a particular model. They even produced these toners before the OEM channels had it in their stock. And they've been doing so ever since. They don't, like I said, they operate above the law. They can produce easily, for example, the latest HP toner, they could produce 4 million a month, which is just as many as Canon produces for them. They could do stuff like that. And they do the research, and they'll change a little pattern on it if they want. They'll change a screw. Instead of turning left, it turns right, and that's it. And boom, they're slapping out these, what we call clones. What I call them are counterfeit clones. And they literally produce more of these in some months than some OEMs do.
And when you experience kind of these things and also find evidence of these kind of things, is that difficult for, let's say, the IP right holder or the owners of the IP? Is it difficult for them to sue companies because they are Chinese, or is it impossible to ban the import? And that is one of the reasons why a US ban from entities like Nine Star are also important in this perspective.
So over the years, and this was kind of our forte in the beginning, we started documenting lawsuits, and we started posting the lawsuits for everyone to see. And the big problem with enforcing IPs is you got to hire high-end lawyers, and that's a whole business in itself with the lawyers and the judges. They want to drag these things out as long as they can, even though they're on your side. So for example, for Canon or HP to defend their IPs, it's going to cost them millions and millions of dollars. And at the end of the day, they slap a fine on the Chinese, and the Chinese will gladly pay the few $1 million fine, because they already made $100 million or $200 million off that one toner. So what's a few $1 million for them? It's a big waste of time. It takes too long. If we had a system that was faster and fairer, it might it might make a difference. But at this point, it's painstakingly slow, which is why, if I may address, we believe, for example, that Epson, who's well known in the industry to sue everybody, we believe that they just folded as far as the lawsuits with Nine Star, and they just went to bed with them. So now we have Epson clones all over Amazon and Walmart, made by Nine Star, and Epson is not suing them. Now Epson is well known for suing everybody in the street for any little thing, but here you have a Chinese manufacturing slapping out 4 to 5 million pieces a month, and they're not being sued. Come on, something is off with that story.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right. Just for me to understand again, in the US market, in all the markets we're talking about, often we have toners as part of a service contract. Does that mean that sometimes when dealers, they can be, let's say, forced to have, let's say, the counterfeiting models of cartridges as part of the service just because the price is lower? Or is it more like when people try to bypass the service agreements?
Okay, well, if you're talking about copiers, the managed print service sector has grown a lot over the past decade. So the OEMs are really trying to get everybody aboard with these managed print softwares in their systems so they can monitor the toner. If you're talking about laser printers for the consumers and inkjets,
it's different, of course.
That's a whole other field in itself. And they obviously, try to, the OEMs try to get, people aboard their, managed print software. But for the consumer point of view, it's not perfect.
Okay. Jimmy, let's say there's like two things I'm interested. One thing is, of course, that this is actually something that has been going on with the counterfeiting or the counterfeiting cartridges for a long time, which disturbs the U.S. market and any market in the world because it's illegal and it's wrong and all these kind of things. And then we have the UFLPA ban, which is now also in effect since June. I mean, these kind of things. What are the consequences for let's say dealers and for the market in the US? I mean, I'm trying to understand the consequences. And let me just put it in perspective. Basically, it's like if all these cartridges, like 4 million or 10 million or how many millions they produce, are suddenly not in the market. It will customers, not consumers, but will customers, not be able to print, or can they just go back and buy the original OEMs instead? Or what is the situation with this ban for the customers?
Okay, so like I said earlier, the customers know nothing about the industry. They just go to these sites, Amazon and
Yeah,
Walmart, and just
I'm
order
not
them.
talking about end customers. I was just talking like the businesses that I was just thinking that there must be some kind of impact when suddenly a big portion of cartridges are left out of the market.
So basically, the ban just happened June 9th. So it's kind of too early to
Too
tell,
early. Okay.
And all the resellers and distributors are still sitting on a pile of stuff. So they'll probably be okay for a few more months,
Okay.
As far as down the line, we are hoping the ban stays, but it would be nice if all the consumers switched over to remanufactured toners and inks. Obviously, OEMs are too expensive, but the remans are affordably priced correctly, and it's definitely the direction we would like to see consumers go in.
And that is the next question I have is tied to that, because I mean, with this volume taken out of the market, is it possible and easy to find replacements so people can find something that is, for example, manufactured in the US, or original OEM parts that they can use instead? I mean, is it easy to get that thing, or will it force increased pricing because of lack of supply?
So there's a big industry besides toner remanufacturing. It's also collecting the empties, and there are times where there's a shortage of empties, OEM empties, but over the years, most people have no problem finding the original empties for remanufacturing. So down the line, there might be shortages of these empties for remanufacturing, but most of these problems are solved over time. Over the years, we've noticed, there's never really, a shortage of the old stuff, because you can always find it, basically.
You have a phone?
Sorry, I'm turning off my phone.
I mean, if it's not a phone, then it's a dog or something like that, right? There will always be something that disturbs us, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Jimmy, I think I understand the market situation. One thing I would also like to let the audience know that is you sent me a couple of reports, because basically, because when I approached you and asked for a comment, I didn't know so much about the counterfeits that you were talking about, and the let's say copies that are illegal copies, which I understand, of course, is a huge part of everything. The report you sent me is also touching a lot upon labor conditions, in generally speaking, in China. Is that something that you have been also? I mean, the reports, I guess that you have read them, of course. I saw this China Watch basically also taking into considerations a lot of other things than just the Uyghur Muslims that we're going to talk about in a second. But so where is your interest, let's say, biased towards American manufacturing and that making things, of course, legal, or is it also towards like labor conditions and how, I mean, all the things that touches upon the labor conditions in different countries?
So we knew, and we were assuming years ago, basically, that for them to manufacture these clones in the millions like this, in a month, and selling them, to wholesalers for $2-3, which is dirt cheap, we knew that this kind of overproduction would catch up with them. But early on, we didn't understand that it was because of forced labor. There had been reports and general news in general that you watch on your local TV what the Chinese government was doing. There had been a lot of reports of abuses, and sadly, in our industry, the OEMs, like even Xerox, Canon, Brother, HP, they knew these things were happening, but it was so easy to have it made there. The facilities were already all set up. They turned a blind eye to these labor abuses, But over time, once our governments, and once the geopolitical issues fall into place, then you can't deny the facts. and the research that governments do around the world exposing these labor abuses. So the two reports I sent you were from a China labor watchdog. We believe that one of the OEMs, if not a couple of them, were involved in getting inside these plants to get to quote these people and to
also the photos,
to show these reports to the public. They're not going to come out and say, oh, we did it, because it's not something you want to be proud of, basically, And but due to the geopolitical tension and the rise of China also as a formidable adversary in manufacturing and many other things, governments started to expose these things, and not just America. You could find, I'm sure, all over Europe reports of labor abuse.
It is because
by the Chinese.
Yeah, because I looked into it when I started writing about it, because I was a little bit jealous at you, because when the US enforced the ban, I thought that why are Europeans not doing it? And they were actually doing it in a slightly different way, because we have 28 countries to take into consideration. So things takes a little bit longer time when you have so many countries with different legislation, but it is definitely something that is politically discussed and things like that. But I mean, you can, I don't know if you know it, but there's quite a few political movements in the world that is also talking about why not just ban everything from non-democracies, right? I mean, there's a political angle to it, and I think that sometimes it's like turning the blind eye because it's cheap, or turning the blind eye because it's good enough, or for whatever reason. And now with this ban, the wicker ban, why? I mean, because it touches upon something that you knew already that took place, but now it's just like came to, let's say, attention of the Homeland Security. Is that? I know it may sound crazy, but is it just because it's part of, let's say, trade war between the US and China that suddenly gets to this level of attention? Or is it because there is a genuine interest in also trying to see if trade can be used to enforce some positive changes into the Chinese labor chain?
So, I don't know if you recall, but the whole thing with China in America started with Trump, know.
I do remember that.
And looking back, I'm no fan of Trump's, but the only good thing I think he did was the ban on China, which really shed light on everything, on the manufacturing, on the exploitation of workers, on human rights abuses. And so he got us all thinking, he got us all wondering. And he had his actual chance in our industry to ban 9-star, but for some reason he didn't. He started it with the steel magnets and all that stuff, which is probably more important than toner at this point. But so Trump got us all started into this, and now we're all talking about it. We're all comparing countries and notes and so forth, and it's really interesting. Unfortunately, everything is now geopolitical, In the good old days, it wasn't. So business has become geopolitical in many ways, and it's the new normal, and the headlines are, when we see a nice headline, we want to throw it out there, even though it doesn't always have to do with print, but still it's shocking enough where people go, maybe I need to pay attention to this stuff. I mean,
I think that maybe we have just been easy consumers, because I mean, in the ever let's say chase for globalization, sometimes the victims have been kind of left behind, right? So, Jimmy, then when the ban was implemented in the U.S. law, and the border control started to look, and I totally agree with you that the impact is first in maybe a couple of months' time. One of the things that was a big surprise to a lot of people was basically that there was no response from 9-star and the subsidiaries when they were notified or got information about the ban. When you heard about it the first time, and the ban first time, what was your initial thinking of it?
So I have an RSS feed that that goes through Tonernews, and it shows the headlines. So, and I saw it there because I could, nothing was coming in through the regular news cycle, and I was blown away. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, because we've been at this trying to ban 9-Star and all the others for like 5 years now. So when I saw it, I quickly ran out there and posted it and sent it out to everybody. So to be honest, we were ecstatic, and I personally sent it out to all our advertisers. I thanked them all for sticking with us after all these years. And we were ecstatic. We didn't know about the U-Gear, that it was because of U-Gears. Honestly, we didn't know. We knew there were labor.
Yeah. Oh, you saw the forced labor.
We knew there were labor abuses. Yeah. We knew there were labor abuses because of the overproduction, But we did not know it was specific to, to a minority of people that are being enslaved, And now we're hearing horrible rumors of organ harvesting, things that are just mind-boggling, that no democracy would ever do, and now it's all coming to light. And we were looking at it just from a toner point of view, but when you look at it from a human rights point of view, it's there was no need for 9-Star and the other company, Hubie Ding Long, to treat people this way. But greed is a powerful tool, and
yeah, I mean, it's for the,
and when you're raking in billions of dollars, and you're throwing nice parties, and you kind of want to, you're hiding the shit, behind the scene, but it's still there.
Yeah, because I was just about saying that for example, harvesting the organs, of course, does not have anything specific to do with 9-Star and the printing industry, but it is more like the political system that is abusing its population for whatever purpose. I think also that, I think we heard it before from Bangladesh, from India, it is it is like when we now in the West and the rich West can use organs, there is a market for it. And I guess, again, it's like always supply and demand, unfortunately. It's the poor people and the weak people that are the victims of these kind of things. I agree with you, everything you said, so it's not because I don't want to talk about it, but I want to get a little bit back to our topic here. So in our world, in our, let's say, understanding of justice, we always say that you're innocent till otherwise proven, or till you're sentenced. Do you think that for example, the Chinese Labor Watch reports you showed, or if you have other sources, or do you think the U.S. government, to put a ban like this in motion, do you think they have evidence strong enough that specific companies have been using forced labor like the ban is supposed to support?
I do, and I'll go out on a limb and say that HP or Canon, one of those companies, is the one who provided the evidence to the government. Okay. We have no proof of it, but I'll go out on a limb and say that because, to get to go that deep inside a plant and put people in there or quote people in there, it takes money and time and patience, so I believe the government has the evidence. I believe they got it from the OEMs in our industry, and I believe that's why they did what they did.
So when you heard that 9-Star's response after several months of silence was taking legal actions against the DHS in Homeland Security in the US, were you as ecstatic as you were when you heard about the ban, or how was your reaction to that?
When I heard about the ban, I was ecstatic. When I saw 9-Star's response, there was a couple articles that came out. The first one was for their shareholders, they were trying to cover their ass for that one. And then the latest one is the lawsuit, which it's just a joke, They, like Ray said, they might as well sue Xi Jinping, because basically, that's the equivalent of what they're trying to do, It's not going to go nowhere. It's a waste of time. But at this point, they had no other option. They had to do something, and maybe the government will show them something. Maybe our U.S. government will say, "Well, look, we have this or we that." And if they don't, that's fine too. We need to keep the ban in place so the remanufacturers and the recyclers in America and the rest of the world have a chance at doing what's right for the environment and for the industry.
Do you think that a continuation of the ban potentially could take Nine Star out of business?
No. I mean, maybe in the US and maybe in Europe, because we're hearing rumors of a possible ban in Europe too. So, but I think they've been operating above the law for a decade. They don't care about laws, Right after the ban was called, they already had contacted other companies to represent them. These companies were also sending out, private letters saying, hey, we can still ship these in by air, and, don't worry, we'll get you what you need. This is, we can deal with it. So Nine Star is not going to disappear, but our customs enforcements in the U.S. need to do a good job and look for these products and these alias companies that they have working for them who are going to try to bring these goods in.
I saw actually that just, I think it was in July, and maybe you've seen it too, besides the ban, now there is also a law implemented in the US that public companies that buy products that are banned can basically get imprisoned for trying to bypass these. So basically what you're talking about here is that even though, let's say Nine Star tried to find different, let's say, channels to distribute the products, if it is with bad will, an American public company acquires these products, they can basically go to jail for it, right?
Well, I mean,
or be sued at least.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we don't want any American companies to be sued or shut down by the government and all that stuff. I'm talking real American companies, okay? Not the ones that the Chinese set up here, the fake ones, We don't want that to happen. Like we said, lawsuits are just a big waste of time and money. They just drag out forever, and by the time, they're settled, the perspective or the concept of the lawsuit is kind of lost, But yes, now that the ban is in place, real U.S. companies that still distribute these products can be sued. And we've talked to a couple companies that we know fairly well, and they're looking at that option. But on the other hand, a lawsuit's not always practical. But it's probably more practical to have the U.S. government come in and just shut the whole place down. At least one of them. That way it sets an example to all the others, and maybe they stop, selling and distributing these goods.
Jimmy, here on the final note, what do you think? I mean, will this be resolved? And in case yes, then how? And if not, then what?
You're talking about the Nine Star?
Yeah, I mean the Nine Star, but also all the things you talked about, the counterfeits and all these kind of things. I mean, because I think that the best outcome of this is basically that it could, clear up the messages a little bit, because this is the only way American legislation can actually force something to happen in China. The best weapon against China is probably trade, because they are so. As we are all dependent on trade, China is maybe even more dependent on trade, because even they have a big domestic market. If they can't sell products, the companies will go out of business eventually, right? So I was just thinking that, okay, what is the outcome of this, both in relation to Nine Star, but also in relation to the issues that you raised way before this ban?
We believe the outcome should be good for remanufacturing and the OEMs for our industry. We believe that outcome will be good. We believe that as far as the overall picture for trade, our government is going to be more pro-dynamic into having other Chinese companies banned. And they will keep doing it because the geopolitical issue is a big issue right now. We are hoping that we can bring back remanufacturing and recycling to a decent level, and we are hoping that we can at some point educate consumers that these products are environmentally friendly and correct, and that they are priced correctly. And we also go explain to consumers the downside of getting these cheap Chinese goods, the human factor, the abuses. And so, but on the other hand, it's not just in our industry. There are many industries in America that have to deal with these products. I mean, I would say 80% of the things you see on Amazon and Walmart is basically a knockoff. And Amazon and Walmart are taking it to the bank. They got the lawyers, they got everybody to protect them. They can drag it out for years. We are also diligently trying to get Amazon to remove all the Chinese clones. We have documented, one of our advertisers has documented over 82 aliases of Chinese ink cartridges, and there are probably even hundreds that are on Amazon. And we've done some calculations where this toner and ink business having to do with the Chinese is probably around $3 billion a year for Amazon.
Wow. So that is, of
That's
course,
just Amazon. And for Walmart, it's probably about $1.5 billion. If you go to Walmart and you type in ink cartridge, you'll see 25 pages of Chinese clones.
It's amazing.
So these are big businesses that are deep into the Chinese clone toner industry, and it's gonna be hard to get them off that. At some point, our government will have to slap them and say, "You better stop." Not just for our industry, but other industries.
For all industries, yeah.
And the geopolitical issues will continue to rise because that's the way our societies are now.
Yeah. And as you said, when Trump started looking into to, let's say, also as part of the trade wars, and basically also have let's say incentives for manufacturing in the US, for example. Of course, you cannot do that if you at the same time allow all that cheap, shitty goods coming in from China, for example, right? So obviously there is the geopolitical side to it, and there's a financial, there's an economy, there's a labor, there's like human rights, there's an environmental kind of. I mean, there are many aspects in this that of course are interesting to watch. Jimmy, I really appreciate that you're on such short notice. I reached out to you yesterday, and here we are, one day later. Great insight from you, and a really valuable contribution to the story. So I just want to thank you very much here on a Monday morning. You are in Hollywood, I'm in San Francisco, and it was great meeting you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for taking the time to have me. This is my first online video ever to represent the industry. I've been meaning to do it, and I'm glad it's with you. I thank you for your time, Morten. And let's keep remanufacturing alive. And if you can help us in doing so, we greatly appreciate it.